I've driven Route 76 100 times before, but something about that stretch of highway late at night is always unnerving. Maybe it's the endless expanse of asphalt cutting through barren fields, or the way the stars seem to vanish behind layers of dark clouds when you're far from any town. Last Friday, I left my friend's house around 11 p.m., planning to make the 3-hour drive home. It was supposed to be routine, music on, windows cracked, and coffee in the cup holder. But within an hour, I was gripping the steering wheel tighter than I'd ever done before. Started small. A hitchhiker, or at least I thought it was one, standing on the shoulder with their back turned. As I passed, my headlights illuminated them for just a second. A tall, lanky figure in a tattered gray coat. Their head tilted slightly, like they just noticed my car. I didn't stop, of course. I wasn't stupid, but for the next 15 minutes, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The figure didn't seem to have a backpack or even a shadow. The unease grew when I saw another figure standing on the shoulder, almost identical to the first. Same coat, same strange stance. But this one was ahead of me, too far to be the same person I'd passed earlier. I told myself it was a coincidence, that maybe hitchhikers had some kind of system along this highway. Still, I pressed my foot a little harder on the gas pedal. That's when my radio went static. I reached for the dial to tune it, but every station was the same crackling sound, interspersed with faint whispers. It wasn't English or any language I recognized. It was just noise, but layered, like more than one voice was speaking at once. I turned it off, but the silence felt worse. 30 minutes later, I saw them again. Not one figure this time, 3 of them standing in a line along the side of the road. Their heads all turned in unison as my car approached, and for a split second, I thought I saw their faces. Blank. No eyes, no mouths, just smooth, pale skin. I swerved, nearly losing control, and sped past them. My heart was pounding as I glanced in the rearview mirror, expecting to see them shrinking in the distance. But the highway behind me was empty. It didn't make sense. I hadn't passed an exit, and there was no way they could have disappeared so quickly. I drove faster, the road stretching endlessly in front of me. Every mile felt the same, as though I wasn't getting anywhere. I checked my GPS, but the map was frozen. No matter how far I drove, the little blue dot didn't move. That's when I saw the car. It was an old, rusted sedan parked on the shoulder with its hazard lights blinking. As I passed, I saw someone sitting in the driver's seat. They weren't moving, just staring straight ahead. I debated stopping to help, but something told me to keep going. A few miles later, I saw another car, same make, same model, same blinking hazards, and the driver looked exactly the same. The third time it happened, the driver turned their head to look at me as I passed. Their face was blank, just like the figures on the road. Panic set in. My hands were shaking, and I couldn't stop glancing in the mirrors. Every time I looked, I thought I saw movement in the back seat, just a flicker of shadow. I don't know how long I drove like that, heart racing, eyes darting everywhere. Felt like hours, but my clock hadn't moved. Then, out of nowhere, the highway ended. I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop in front of a barricade. Beyond it was a dead end, nothing but dirt and scrub. No lights, no signs, no other cars. I sat there, breathing hard, trying to make sense of it. Route 76 didn't just end. Connected to other highways led to towns. But here I was, stranded at the edge of nowhere. When I looked in the rearview mirror, they were there. The hitchhikers, the drivers, all of them standing in the road behind me, their featureless faces tilted toward my car. I didn't wait. I threw the car in reverse, spun around, and tore back down the highway. The figures didn't follow me. They didn't need to. When I finally saw the lights of a gas station, I pulled in, shaking so badly I could barely get out of the car. The clerk looked at me like I was crazy when I asked about Route 76. "There's no Route 76 around here," he said. "Hasn't been for years. They tore it up after that big crash back in '88. I didn't argue. I just nodded, bought another coffee, and got back in my car. I don't know where I was that night, or who, or what was on that road, but I'll never take the highway again after dark. The road stretched out before me, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the desolate landscape. The sun was beginning to set, casting long, eerie shadows that danced across the barren plains. I had been driving for hours, the only sound the hum of the engine and the occasional sigh of the wind. I'd always been fascinated by Route 66, the mother road. But tonight, as I traversed its darkened expanse, a sense of unease crept over me. It was as if the very road itself was alive, pulsating with a sinister energy. The first sign was a peculiar mist that began to gather around my car. It wasn't the fog of a humid night, but a strange, ethereal mist that seemed to cling to the vehicle, obscuring the road ahead. As I pressed on, the mist thickened, and the visibility dwindled to almost nothing. Then the apparitions began. At first, they were fleeting glimpses. A figure standing by the roadside, a shadowy form darting across the desert. But as the night deepened, they grew more persistent, more terrifying. A ghostly convoy of cars, their headlights extinguished, moved in tandem with mine. A spectral hitchhiker, his face a blank canvas of nothingness, materialized in the rearview mirror. Fear, cold and clammy, gripped my heart. I yearned to escape the road's sinister embrace, but the mist held me captive. The further I drove, the deeper I seemed to sink into a nightmare. Suddenly, the road ahead vanished. The asphalt simply ended, swallowed by the endless expanse of the desert. Panic surged through me as I slammed on the brakes. The car shuddered to a halt and the engine died. As I sat there, paralyzed by fear, I heard a faint whisper, carried on the wind. "You've gone too far," it seemed to say. "Turn back or face the consequences." I turned the key in the ignition, but the engine refused to start. The mist closed in, enveloping the car completely. A cold, skeletal hand reached through the fog, tapping on the window. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the silence. Then, darkness. When I awoke, I was back on the road, the sun shining brightly. The mist had vanished, and the spectral apparitions were gone. But the memory of the night's horrors lingered, a haunting reminder of the dark secrets that still lurk along the desolate stretches of Route 66.